International People's Tribunal, the Aban Tribunal, to investigate the atrocities and human rights violations by the Islamic Republic of Iran that took place during the nationwide 2019 Iran protests. The London-based human rights NGO Justice for Iran on November 14th announced the establishment of a People's Tribunal to investigate atrocities and human rights violations by the Islamic Republic of Iran during November 2019 Iran protests that left thousands dead, injured and detained. An International People's Tribunal, the Aban Tribunal, to investigate atrocities that took place in Iran exactly 1 year ago has been established as an initiative of Justice for Iran, Iran Human Rights and the World Coalition Ensemble Contre la Peine de Mort on behalf of victims, families and protesters, according to the NGO. The tribunal provides a mandate to a group of renowned international lawyers on behalf of the victims, community and the public to investigate human rights violations by Iran during a wave of national protests in November 2019, resulting in the deaths of hundreds of unarmed protesters. After hearing evidence and deliberation, the panel will determine whether crimes under international law have been committed by Iranian state forces and paramilitaries during the protests. The Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control on Wednesday announced a sweeping fresh sanctions package on Iran targeting a foundation controlled by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Washington also accused the Islamic officials of human rights abuses in Iran a year after a deadly crackdown on anti-government demonstrators, also known as Bloody Aban. The United States Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control took action today against the key patronage network for the Supreme Leader of Iran, the Islamic Revolution Mostazafan Foundation, an immense conglomerate of some 160 holdings in key sectors of Iran's economy, including finance, energy, construction, and mining. While Bunyad Mostazafan is ostensibly a charitable organization charged with providing benefits to the poor and oppressed, its holdings are expropriated from the Iranian people and are used by the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei to enrich his office, reward his political allies, and persecute the regime's enemies. 19-year-old prisoner Mohammad Dawai was fatally beaten and tortured in Amirabad prison in Gorgan, northern Iran. Wardens stripped Mohammad naked and hung him from the ceiling, poured cold water on him in freezing cold weather. Agents took off his clothes and cuffed his hands and his feet while he was naked and hung him upside down from the prison ceiling in the cold. The wardens brutally beat Mohammad until he was unconscious and then poured cold water on the juvenile to punish him. Mohammad passed away because he could not tolerate further torture. Monarchist Arsham Rezai was taken into Tehran notorious Evin prison to serve his 3 years imprisonment. He was arrested along with his nephew by security agents in front of his house in Iran on November 18th. The Islamic Supreme Court rejected the appeal of an Iranian Christian convert who was initially sentenced to 10 years in prison. 2 citizens were arrested by the Islamic security forces in southwestern Iran on November 15th. The agents took them to an unknown location. No reason for the arrest reported. The Islamic security forces arrested 39-year-old citizen Nabi Vaisi in western Iran and took him to an unknown location. A former official has called for the sterilization of drug-addicted women in Iran to prevent social harm. The former member of the Islamic Consultative Assembly, Masoud Rezai, said the drug-addicted women should undergo sterilization. By implementing the sterilization plan for addicted women, we must prevent them from spreading diseases. Those addicted women who live on the outskirts of metropolitans and marginalized areas due to addiction and poverty should be sterilized, he added. Iranian experts, however, believe that the regime in Iran tries to hide the main issue by propounding an anti-human plan instead of attempting to banish poverty and addiction from the society. Protests continued. A group of citizens along with workers, ranchers, educators, peasants, shopkeepers, sailors and investors held protests across Iran over financial difficulties, unpaid wages and lost money. At least 2 Katyusha rockets struck near the United States Embassy in Baghdad on Tuesday, according to Iraqi security officials. The strike came on the heels of published reports that President Trump recently asked military officials and top advisors about a possible attack on a nuclear complex in neighboring Iran. The Republican State's Assemblywoman Nicole Maliotakis has flipped a district that is considered the most conservative in New York City. Nicole Maliotakis was among those candidates who were supported and endorsed by the Iranian Americans for the Constitution.